Nobody cared about the starving dog trembling on the sidewalk until a baby did something so unexpected the entire street froze, and what followed melted even the hardest hearts. The city pulsed with life. Engines roared, horns blared, and voices tangled into a restless hum. Sunlight flashed off glass towers and spilled across crowded sidewalks, where people rushed past each other, eyes glued to screens, minds locked on their own busy worlds. In the shadows of one bustling avenue, a German shepherd lay crumpled beside a brick wall. His fur was ragged and dirty, patchy as old cloth clinging to a frame of sharp ribs. His eyes were half closed, dulled by exhaustion and hunger. Each shallow breath stretched thin skin over the cage of his bones. A man in a sharp suit glanced down, grimaced, and stepped wide without breaking stride. Two teenagers passed, giggling, one raising her phone to snap a picture. "Look at that gross stray," she sneered, and disappeared into the crowd. The dog didn't even flinch. He learned that the world kept moving, never slowing for creatures like him. To them, he was nothing more than trash blending into the city grime. Minutes crawled into hours. Shadows grew longer on the concrete. The dog's head drooped lower, as if he wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Then, above the noise of traffic and hurried footsteps, a small, bright voice rang out. "Doggy!" At first, nobody noticed, but there, a few feet away, stood a toddler, barely 18 months old. Soft brown hair curled over his forehead, and he wore a bright yellow shirt dotted with tiny dinosaurs. In one chubby hand, he held a plastic sippy cup filled with apple juice. The other hand hovered by his side, fingers flexing as if reaching for something unseen. His mother was several paces ahead, weaving through the crowd, eyes glued to her phone. She didn't realize her child had stopped. The baby stared at the German shepherd with wide blue eyes, filled with wonder adults often forget. He didn't see a stray. He didn't see filth or fear. All he saw was a doggy. The shepherd lay frozen, his body tense, as though any sudden movement might bring a blow or a shout. His ears twitched slightly, but his eyes stayed locked on the ground. People nearby began to notice. A woman pushing a stroller gasped, "Someone grab that kid!" A man muttered under his breath, "Lady, get your kid away. That dog could be sick." But the baby didn't hear, or didn't care. He took a small, careful step forward. His soft sneakers made barely a sound against the pavement, lost beneath the noise of the city. Gasps rippled through the onlooker. A man in a baseball cap hissed, "He's going to get bit." But the baby kept moving, unsteady, one step at a time, until he stood just inches away from the dog. The shepherd still didn't raise his head. His body remained coiled tight as though expecting pain. The toddler stood silently for a long moment, simply looking. Then, as if struck by an idea, he lifted his sippy cup and held it out. Juice sloshed inside. A few drops fell onto the sidewalk, glistening like tiny gems. The dog's nose twitched, catching the sweet scent, but he didn't move. Time seemed to slow as the baby's small hand hovered closer, trembling slightly. The entire crowd held its breath, waiting for a snarl or a bite. Instead, the baby lowered himself into a wobbly squat. Still holding the cup, his little legs shook as he balanced, determined not to fall. Then, he reached forward and touched the dog's matted fur. The German shepherd flinched as though jolted by an electric shock. For a heartbeat, it looked as if he might bolt and vanish into the chaos. But he stayed. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the distant roar of traffic seemed to fade into silence. The dog slowly turned his head, eyes lifting to meet the baby's, and for an instant, it felt as if the entire city shrank away, leaving only those two pairs of eyes locked together. And the baby smiled. Not a hesitant smile, a radiant, pure, boundless smile that seemed to say, "I see you. You matter." From deep inside the shepherd's chest came a low, quivering sound. It wasn't a growl, it was a soft whimper, a mix of fear and hope. The baby gently brushed the dog's fur again, fingers gliding through dirt and knots. Slowly the shepherd leaned closer, pressing his muzzle to the baby's knee as if soaking in the warmth from those tiny hands. A woman nearby whispered, "Oh my God!" Her voice trembled, eyes glossy with tears. At last, the baby's mother realized her child wasn't beside her. She turned, eyes darting, panic creeping into her voice. "Sweetheart," she called, rushing back through the crowd. But when she reached them, she froze, because what she saw wasn't danger, it was something close to a miracle. Her son was gently stroking the dog's ragged fur, and the shepherd was leaning into him, as if terrified that this fragile moment of kindness might vanish if he moved. Tears welled in the mother's eyes. She knelt beside them, voice shaking as she reached out a trembling hand and touched the dog's flank. His fur felt coarse beneath her fingers, thin over sharp ribs. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice barely steady. "You're safe now." Around them, the crowd pressed closer. A delivery driver lowered his package and simply stared. A woman with shopping bags clutched her chest, eyes brimming with emotion. No one laughed, no one lifted a phone. For a brief moment, the city felt utterly still. From the crowd stepped a woman in faded jeans and a blue shirt with a paw print on her chest. Her eyes were red-rimmed, filled with the weight of someone who'd seen too many animals in pain. "I run a rescue," she said softly, her voice catching in her throat. "Please, let me help him." The mother nodded fiercely, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Yes," she whispered, "please help him." The rescue worker knelt, moving slowly so she wouldn't startle the dog. She extended her hand. The shepherd sniffed her fingers, cautious, but no longer empty. Gently, she slipped a soft leash over his neck. "Good boy," she murmured. "You're safe now." The dog staggered as he rose, legs trembling beneath him. It seemed he might collapse. But then he turned, looking back at the baby one last time. In that brief glance, his eyes shone with something fragile but unmistakable: hope. The baby clapped his hands, his laughter rimming like sunshine breaking through clouds. "Doggy!" he squealed. The rescue worker guided the shepherd toward a waiting van. Just as the dog stepped inside, he paused. He turned, found the baby in the crowd, and gave a tiny wag of his tail. The mother scooped her son into her arms, pressing a kiss into his hair. "You reminded us all today," she whispered into her soft curls, her voice breaking, "that sometimes the smallest hands hold the greatest power to heal." And for that single perfect moment on a noisy city street, strangers stood together in silence, their hearts cracked open by the purest act of compassion, a child who saw past dirt and fear and reminded the world how simple it is to love.